Welcome to Mind Gourmet. My name is Nina Kaiser. I'm the co-founder of Mind Gourmet and, as always, your host today. My today's guest is psychiatrist, empath, intuitive healer, and best-selling author of the Empath Survival Guide and Thriving as an Empath, 365 Days of Self-Care for Sensitive People, Dr. Judith Orloff. Dr. Orloff, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be on.
I'm so excited to dive with you into our conversation about what it means to be an empath and how we can thrive with this incredible sensitivity. And before we start, though, I will introduce you a little bit to our audience. Dr. Judith Orloff is a New York Times bestselling author of the Empath Survival Guide, Life Strategies for Sensitive People, and Thriving as an Empath, 365 Days of Self-Care for Sensitive People. She is also on the UCLA Psychiatric Clinical Faculty. She synthesizes the pearls of traditional medicine with cutting-edge knowledge of intuition and energy medicine and spirituality. Dr. Orloff specializes in treating empaths and sensitive people and teaches skills for embracing the empath's gifts and how to avoid taking on other people's stress. So yes, let's dive right in. Would you please share with us what the characteristics of an empath are? And if you'd like to share, how did you yourself find out that you are an empath?
Yes, well, I'll start with that and then go on to the characteristics of an empath. And just by the way, I have a 20-question self-assessment test in front of the Empath Survival Guide. You can self-diagnose yourself as an empath, and it's very important. If you have any doubts about this or questions, you're just not familiar with it, go through the 20 questions and we can go over them in this podcast. But you can diagnose yourself as an empath. And if you are an empath to any degree, you need to know about it so you can develop self-care techniques to not absorb other people's energy and maximize the gifts. So that's important. That's the bulk of my writing in my books, is how to identify, apply being an empath, and maximize the gifts by using self-care. So there's a skill set here that, so don't feel that, if you're overwhelmed or you're on sensory overload, that you'll never shift, because that's not so.
Yeah.
I've worked with so many empaths who, have come to me with sensory overload. Things are too much. I have all these physical symptoms. I have all this anxiety. I have depression. I attract narcissists, the whole gambit of what you can do. So there's a treatment plan for this, and there's a skill set to learn, so that you don't do any of those things, then you could shift, and it's very empowering. But just to backtrack, I grew up in Beverly Hills, Westwood area in California, in Southern California, and my parents were both physicians. I have 25 physicians in my family, coming from a long lineage of scientific and academic thinkers. And I was a little girl who was an only child, who would feel things and sense things and know things. And I was an empath, where I can be next to a tree, let's say, and feel the tree in my body versus walk by the tree and say, oh, what a nice tree. So an empath's signature is that you can feel what's going on in other people, in nature, in rooms and environments, in your own body. So that's a big difference between you and a non-empath. So that's
Right.
a very, very big difference that you need to learn to work with and enjoy. But as a little girl, I couldn't walk into shopping malls and crowded places, because I'd walk in feeling fine and walk out exhausted or with some ache or pain I didn't have before, anxious or thrown off or depressed or overstimulated. It was just, I didn't know what happened between A and B. I left, but I knew that I couldn't take it, and I didn't have the verbiage for it. And my parents would just say, oh dear, you just don't have a thick enough skin. You're overly sensitive. You need to toughen up to be in this world. And it's kind of puzzling as a child to hear that, because, you think, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah.
How do I do something like that? And why would I want to do it? It just didn't make any sense to me. So I became ashamed of my abilities, and I didn't tell anyone about my experiences. I got very inward, very private. is I didn't feel safe sharing it. And I think that's a common experience among many empaths, but we empaths need to have our people. We need to have those who understand us and don't say things like, oh, you need to develop a thicker skin, because that's not the answer. And my parents loved me so much. I was their only child. They were well-intentioned people, and they just didn't know any better. And I think, my desire now is, through my writings and through my workshops, is to educate people, educate parents, educate teachers, educate healers, educate everybody about what this means and how to help somebody and support them, with this type of ability, because I believe that empathy is the trait that will save the world. I do. I feel that being able to feel for someone else, another human being in your own family, every human being is the same family. We're all the same package, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
To be able to feel what's going on in our family members is very important. And to see the connection between us and all of sentient life, all the creatures, the earth, the waters, the fires, the air, everything, the elements that we contain in our own bodies and are also connected to the outer world. So there's a connection that comes along with being an empath that you begin to appreciate. And when you're a child, when I was a child and I felt all this, I didn't quite know how to put it all together. Of course, how would I?
Yeah.
And I would just, lie in my bed and stare out at the moon and feel good, that the moon was my friend, or stare out at the little birds. And, I had a very strong interior life. I was a quiet child, introvert, always had one friend, loved climbing trees, didn't love being on sports teams or anything with lots and lots of people. But that's a typical profile of an empath or highly sensitive person. So it's important, for everyone listening to look back on what was your childhood like? What did you love to do? Where were you ashamed? How can you reprogram yourself, basically to embrace your gifts? I mean, I think it's the most wonderful thing in the world to be an empath. I wouldn't change it for anything, and I love being an empath. The downside, though, is we're so sensitive, we're emotional sponges, and we tend to absorb the angst of the world.
Yeah.
And that's not good. But you do it automatically until you learn how not to do it. And so that's what I wanted to teach in Thriving as an Empath, which is a book about self-care techniques. How do you not absorb other people's energy? What can you do? There's short kind of recipes each day for what to do in terms of self-care. How can I walk out today? It takes maybe a few minutes to read. That's it. It's not a long commitment to reading. The Empath Survival Guide, which preceded it, is more of an educational text about what to do in all aspects of being an empath and understanding them. But Thriving as an Empath is more about self-care techniques that you can apply in your life right away. And one of them is how to stop absorbing the energy of other people. What do you do? And that's an important skill set for empaths to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. My heart has just been buzzing with everything you shared, because I am able to relate to so much. I did the assessment in the Empath Survival Guide, and I was pretty sure I was one, but I was very strongly confirmed. And what you said, that this is actually an incredible gift. And my experience with it, like you had described about your childhood, was that I actually only felt the negative sides, because I have the thing with you have to get a thicker skin too, been told many times, or I was related to a child that walks barefoot without shoes, like metaphorically, and nothing seemed to work to toughen up. And only through help by, for example, reading your books or watching interviews you did and other people who speak about empathy, I slowly learned to recognize that this is actually really a beautiful gift. And that what you mentioned as well, when we find people who are similar and who take care of our needs and can own their stuff in a sense, so that we can share the same environment without a weird subconscious energy battle in a sense. This is so beautiful. So thank you for writing these books, because I think they're probably, way more people than we could count that are terribly, fantastically helped. And so returning to the book, I loved the how you called the introduction, which is reclaiming your time, the art of self-care for sensitive people. So I would like you to speak a little about both, like why reclaiming your time as an empath especially, and why is self-care so essential for empaths?
Well, the introduction to thriving as an empath is about reclaiming your time, the art of self-care for sensitive people. And time is a precious commodity, and it goes very quickly. And how you use your time, who you spend your time with, how you use it, how much enjoyment do you have, how much positivity do you have, that makes a difference, because time passes. Every day time passes, and Thriving as an Empath is a day at a time book. And so it allows us to go one trip around the sun together in terms of self-care, every day doing it together. But time, you want to use it well. You don't want to waste it. You don't want to squander it. And we never know how much time we have on this earth. We don't. Things could turn in a dime. So you want to use this moment well. You want to use this moment and think about, when you're reading Thriving as an Empath, think about your time today, this moment, and then the next moment, and the next moment, to make sure you're doing what you want to do, and to make sure that you're optimizing your time. And by reading this book, you're making a choice of how you spend your time. Do you want to spend it with energy vampires who are draining you and sucking you dry, and working out issues with narcissistic partners who are never going to be able to reciprocate love with you? I hope not. But you have to decide. This book is kind of asking you, maybe you don't even realize that you attract narcissists as a pattern, as an empath, because that's a relationship pattern that some empaths get into. But in this book, it's, just a day on identifying narcissists and setting limits or learning how to deal with them, so that you can kind of rally your time to use it in a better way. So you want to if you have a choice to spend a day with a narcissist or spend a day with a fellow empath and go for a walk in nature, what do you want to do? Hopefully you're going to go for that beautiful walk. And to me, as an empath, little things mean the most. Supposedly little things like going on a walk with a friend.
Right.
That's the epitome for me. Going on a walk with a friend is so great. I just love it. It's so much better than going to a big concert somewhere with tons of people and parking problems and traffic. I love, but I'm speaking as an empath. The non-empaths or extroverted empaths might like doing those things, and I'm not judging those things. I'm just saying, for my introverted temperament, my self-care involves making the most of every moment and loving what I do, and really making sure I want to be spending my time in a certain way. And at first, you might find that your time is not allotted in a very good way, or something that makes you happy. And that's okay. You need to look at it, and you need to say, okay, what can I shift? I have, in this book, there, yay.
Mm-hmm.
So excited to write, we have twin books. That's good.
Yes.
To write a book and then to talk about it. But even, there's so many things I write about, in terms of, communicating with non-empaths. How do you do that in a loving way? Let's say your partner is a non-empath. There's February 23rd is devoted to that. Stop controlling people. And that's another self-care technique for empaths, because empaths often tend to overhelp and overgive and want to control outcomes.
Yes.
And that's exhausting. That can lead to sensory overload. And then on February 21st, release your partner's stress, because so many people in relationship will take on their partner's stress or their children's stress. So how not to do that? Boundaries and intimacy. Boundaries are key for empaths. How do you, say no? How do you say, no, I need some alone time right now. I can't talk anymore. Just that. I mean, the talking takes energy sometimes.
Yes.
Doesn't it? It's like, you don't want to talk sometimes. You want to be quiet. So you have to be able to tell people that. And then there's the 3-minute heart meditation on February. I'm just here in February. I know we're in January. Now, what is our date today? What is the date?
January 15th.
January 15th. Yeah,
Yeah.
I often don't know the date. It's interesting.
Lessons on water.
What can you read that? Lessons of water. Can you just talk a little bit about that one? Because empaths are connected to water, the ocean, lakes, running water, baths, showers, hot springs.
Yeah, you're right. In many healing traditions, the 4 elements, fire, air, water, and earth, possess unique nurturing qualities and are linked to different seasons. Water has often been associated with winter. It represents tranquility, conserving energy, flexibility, and flow. Since our bodies are 2/3 water, it's understandable that many sensitive people are drawn to it. Would you like me to continue through the rest?
Read the intention. At the end of each day is a set your intention, which I think is important to do each day, to set your own intention about one thing and to stay clear on that.
Yeah, so the intention is, I will learn flexibility from observing the motion of water. I will practice flowing around obstacles rather than forcing a confrontation.
Right. That's a fun exercise. That's
Yes.
fun. Instead of clenching and holding. And if you meet someone that you have a conflict with today, when you're reading this particular day, you can all of a sudden focus on being like water and flexibility and watching water. And instead of hitting somebody like this, zenning around them, the Zen approach, instead of the hitting the head approach, and practice that. It's so much fun. And it works, but it means getting out of old ways of thinking where you clench, and getting, as an empath, to be able to flow a little bit more and to, be very tactful and sensitive to people, but make your point, to learn how to make your point in a kind but firm way.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that at least I and maybe other empaths have been and still do a little struggle with, how to say no, but still be open to somebody.
Yes.
And like you said, a boundary doesn't necessarily have to be a confrontation. It can be just a different way of behaving that serves me and maybe even the other person better than it would be, either by just following other people's needs and feeling bad, or like not bad really, but maybe drain ourselves, or fronting a confrontation, which is very unpleasant, probably for most empaths. So I love the tips and the ways you show how to really feel well in our skin and be both intuitive, sensitive, and still knowing where maybe we can even find a new word for boundaries that is in some sense less empath-like. Because I love the fact that we are in somehow permeable a little bit, because I think that's also part of this huge talent. And maybe also because English is my second language, the word boundary sounds like impermeability.
Oh,
like
interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah. But sometimes, and this is hard for empaths, you need to have a firm boundary. You need to have a no. You can't go into this place. You can't yell at me. You can't dump anger on me. And then I'm firm about this. This is, one of the exercises in thriving as an empath is learning how to set limits with dumping anger, and knowing the difference between making an appointment to discuss an issue that's related to anger versus dumping. And dumping, I can't take dumping. As an empath, if somebody starts dumping on me, it's just, it's too much. I shut off, and it hurts and it's painful. And so I've made it clear, my boundary is no yelling in my space, because I don't like yelling. That's just me. I don't like it. It's too much. It's too shocking for me. My adrenaline starts surging when somebody starts yelling. I don't like it. So
Yeah.
I say no to it. No, I cannot listen to this. And if you want to talk about something, make a request. Can I talk to you this tomorrow morning about it? Oh, yes, I'll set aside the time and do that. And we can talk about it and discuss it. And that's much better for me as an empath to be ready for it rather than have somebody hit me by surprise with dumping anger, which is unacceptable. So that's why, for me, and that's why the boundary needs to be firm. It can't be permeable there. It needs to be, I'm sorry, no, this doesn't
Yes,
work for me.
I do get it. And I did receive also that I still can say it in a kind way, as long as it's possible, at least.
You can, and if they don't respect it, I mean, I've worked with so many patients where they practice this, but they don't respect this. And then they're in the car and the person starts dumping anger in the car where you can't get out. And so I had one patient who said to the person she was driving with, please pull over. I'm going to get an Uber. I'm leaving. No, they're not acceptable. If you can't control this, I'm leaving. And she didn't do it mean. She did it just matter of fact, let me out. Bye.
Yeah.
But you don't want to get into it with someone. You see, empaths tend to overcompensate and they are people pleasers. And that's something I talk about in Thriving as an Empath, how to heal people pleasing. You can't please everybody. And this is a hard realization to come to grips with. But you can't. And sometimes people will be disappointed or unhappy with you. This is part of maturity and being able to live with unresolved problems, which is one of the self-care techniques. How do you live with unresolved problems? You can't solve everything, at least right now. Maybe in the future you can solve it, and you have to just let it be. And that's hard for empath. They want to get in there and fix and solve, and we have to work this out when maybe the timing isn't quite right. So empaths need to listen to their intuition, sense when a door is open for change with somebody, and sense when the door is shut, and not try and push your way into resolution. Sometimes as an empath, it's better to take a few steps backward and regroup, and wait, you see. But the boundaries, you say no with a kind but firm tone. You don't say it punitive. You don't say it, I dislike you and I'm resentful that you asked me this. None of that. This person is asking me something I can't do, so I have to say no. That's all there is to it. So it's practice, practice, practice. And the tone of voice, I can't get that across enough, that's essential. As you can do a positive no.
Yes.
Where you love the person and you respect the person. Sorry, I can't do it right now. And empaths need to accept their limitations as well. If you're tired, you usually don't want to push through that. You usually don't. There's some circumstances where you just have to show up and you rally. But if you can, you want to respect that tiredness, because you don't want to go on sensory overload. Empaths are prone to sensory overload because their neurologic systems are so open, and we're feeling everything all the time. It's like we have tendrils, like sea creatures. We're feeling things all the time. Like my experience of life is that it's like water, like you're going in currents. It's not solid. And so you want to know when you just get too much like this, you have to go, inside, decrease stimulation, meditate, be in nature, maybe close the drapes, don't have light coming in, but whatever you can, decrease the stimulation so that you could come back to yourself and your heart. The heart is very important, the center for compassion and loving kindness. So there are all kinds of techniques in Thriving as an Empath on coming back to your heart. I practice Taoism for the last 30 years. That's my spiritual practice. And the heart chakra of unconditional love for the self and for all beings is something to develop as a practice. And so I feel strongly about that. And when you open up the heart energy, that fuels you. You start feeling this delightful, loving, glowing honey-like feeling inside when you open up. It's a particular part in the chest, a chakra, an energy center that you open up. And that's a key technique for empaths, especially empaths who are anxious. If you notice anxiety starting to build, the hand has to go to the heart immediately. You have to breathe, center, focus on a loving thought, and bring yourself back to the heart instead of all the swirling anxiety that's about to build. So you
Right.
can learn all this. It's so exciting. It just, all right, hand over heart. And it really works. It seems really simple, and in a way it is, but it's a deep practice to keep opening your heart. Very nurturing.
Yeah. I've been practicing it for a few years now, and I'm realizing that guess I practice it for all my life, because there's always more love to feel, in a
Always
sense.
deeper and deeper.
And thank you for touching on sensory overload, because I think that's very important to mention. I would have asked you otherwise, and I wanted to just say that one key element in this for me was to actually understand when I'm sensorially overloaded, so that I know the signs, in a sense. And it has taken me probably almost 40 years of my life to really get the clue. So it's so helpful to know this. So before I ask you how people can engage with you, and I want to mention a beautiful event that you're going to do in the near future, I wanted to ask you, so this in some sense is a beautiful yearbook, but there are different ways to utilize it, right? So
Right.
people can go through it day by day. Which other ways would you say make sense and you could recommend?
Some people read it in the morning before work. Some people read it before they go to sleep to self-soothe. Some people ask an inner question and just turn to a page in the book. For instance, I'll ask an inner question about, I can't think of one. Like nothing's coming right now. So I wait for something to come. I'll ask an inner question about deepening my connection to nature.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn and then pause when agitated. So that's, a beautiful thing, not to, if you're agitated, don't keep hammering it. Go into nature. That's how I would interpret that, is go into nature when you're agitated, come back, and then deal with it. You see, so anyways, you could turn to a page, you can ask a question, intuitively turn to a page, and the book can be like an oracle. And so you can read it that way. You can read it, we just passed January 1st, but you can go on the date that we're on, January 15th now, and start January 15th and go all the way to the next January 15th and make it a meditation to read a self-care technique every day and practice it. And it's a way to stay simple.
Yes.
Don't practice 10 techniques, practice one technique a day. Don't overcomplicate this. Just stay very simple and enjoy the practice. And I've had families of empaths reading days together where they get around the table.
Aww.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
They get around the breakfast table and they read it together and talk about how they're going to apply it and then go off into the world. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I've had many families of empaths come to my workshops, and they're working on this together, and it's so beautiful to me, really beautiful. So you can use the book that way. And then I have a journal called the Empath Empowerment Journal, where you can write your empath self, and their prompts, how do you stop absorbing other people's energy? And it gives you ideas, and then you write about it. What are your blocks? What are your successes? So it's a very private journal. Nobody else sees it but you. And you find a topic in thriving as an empath, such as not absorbing other people's energy, and then go write about it and be free, be uninhibited. Just write, get it out. Don't, the shame, don't let the shame bind you with this. This is about healing the shame, and the journal can help you with that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I've just, before we started recording, I shared that I so much would love to come to your event, which is in Los Angeles on April 25th and 26th. It's a weekend, and you called it Self-Care 2020 Retreat for Empaths and Sensitive People. So tell tell everybody who can come what they will experience, and let me know what I'm going to miss.
Oh, it's a 2-day empath retreat workshop for self-care. And people have been requesting this, or they want to get together with other empaths in a beautiful setting, in a quiet, sensitive way to begin to, express their own needs as an empath, learn self-care, learn how to replenish themselves in a very supportive, loving environment, maybe noticing any blocks you might have. But it's a place to explore being an empath and to replenish yourself. It's a weekend for you as empaths. If you're on sensory overload, if you've been so busy, you just need to take time out for you and come together with other kindred sensitive souls. It's April 25th and 26th of this year. And one day we'll be in a forest-like environment, and the second day we'll be on the beach, so we could experience different kinds of nature. And it's a structure on the beach. It's not on the beach itself, though you can choose to go out. And so empaths can come together on April 25th, 26th. You can sign up on my website, Judith Orloff, ORLOFF.com. And I look forward to seeing all of you. I just am so excited about this weekend with empaths coming together. There's such beautiful people, empaths, really beautiful people. So I look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a soul family meeting. So everybody knows how they can find you. We'll link to your website and to your social media channels. And if there's people who are interested in working with you or learning more about you or engaging with you, but cannot come to this event, maybe have read your books, are there more ways that they can learn from you?
Yes, I have a 9-lesson online video course that I teach, so you can interact just like this, and not interact, but be able to teach, to be able to see me teaching.
Yes.
And I go through empaths and love, empaths and health, empaths and emotions, empaths at work. So each video session is devoted to a different topic. So you can see the online course. And you could come on my Facebook Empath Support Community, Dr. Orloff's Empath Support Community, and I also give private sessions that you could sign up for on the website, drjudithorloff.com, if you want to work with me privately.
Perfect. In so many ways. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing everything that you've shared. I feel this beautiful space that we're in, and I think many others, especially empaths, might feel it too. So thank you for sharing this space and this time with me. I feel very honored, and I thrive in these kind of conversations. So thank you personally also.
Yeah.
And yeah,
thank you for getting the word out about empaths and educating empaths. That's so important. So important to get the information out for people, because a lot of people just don't know. And when they begin to find out, a light bulb goes on and their life changes.
Yeah, exactly. As it was for me. And that's probably the biggest reason why I'm so passionate about it. So for everyone who is watching and listening, you will find all important information about Dr. Orloff and her work below this interview, and about the event also. So it's weirdly always hard to say goodbye, but I'm
spoken like a true empath.
So goodbye, everybody. And always remember to take the driver's seat in your life and create this lifetime to your taste. It's our pleasure here at Mind Gourmet to support you with our food for thought. Thank you, Dr. Orloff. And bye, everybody.
Bye, you're very welcome.